In this video, I'll show you how materials are transferred from Rhino to Revit using Conveyor version 5. For this example, we have a Rhino model open using Rhino inside of Revit, and within that Rhino model, we've created materials and applied those to various elements. As we transfer these elements over to Revit, those materials are going to be created on the Revit side and share their color, transparency, and bitmap texture properties. First, I'll expand my conveyor panel so that we can see our controls here, and I'll select on an object and send it over so that we can see the material that's been applied to it on the Revit side. I'll start here with this green marble wall because it's a distinct material. We'll be able to see it pretty clearly as compared to some of the other materials. It's already been categorized within Conveyor as a wall, so it's ready to send, and all we'll need to do is hit send to Revit. As the material's been brought over, and if I zoom in here, I can see that there is a texture that's been applied. It has a different scale than the texture on the Rhino side, and that has to do with the fact that Revit and Rhino handle mapping of these textures onto the objects in two different ways. Within Revit, users are able to enter in a specific dimension for how the tile is applied to these elements, and within Rhino, it's based on a UV mapping system, which is relative to the size of the element that the material is being applied to. From here, let's take a closer look at the material properties in both Rhino and Revit. If I open up the material in the Rhino side, you can see that it's named RH Green Marble Light. It has a color that's been set, and it also has a color texture, bitmap texture, that's set. And within this drop-down, you can see the file name of the texture. So this is the path where it's coming from. On the Revit side, if I search for the same material, its color for a shaded appearance is the same light green, and within its appearance, the image is the same. And if I open this up, it is going to the same file path. Conveyor is using the same file path for both materials, so you'll want to make sure that your file path is active and that you have access to those files when you use this process. The rest of the elements should transfer over with their materials in a similar fashion. So I'll zoom out here and we can watch the progress as it imports. I'll select everything on the Rhino side and hit send to Revit. Everything has imported with its material. We can see that the transparent glass has come across with its transparency for rendered mode. If I toggle over to shaded mode, the glass has also inherited the transparency property in shaded mode or underneath the graphic material properties. We can jump back into our materials menu and take a closer look here. It's inheriting this transparency property from Rhino in both the appearance for the rendered view of the object and also on the graphic side. If we wanted, we could turn this down and tweak it to make it a little bit more apparent that there is colored glass there. Another adjustment that you might like to make to these materials is changing the bitmap texture scale that's associated with each one. On import, the scale of the textures is set to the default 1 foot by 1 foot scale, and you can adjust those by entering your own dimensions in the materials properties. Once you've updated the element on the Revit side, if I were to use the same material on a new object on the Rhino side, and then send this over to Revit, it will inherit the new material properties rather than overriding. These enhanced materials features make it easier for you to coordinate your materials and the appearance of your models between Revit and Rhino.